I never expected the reunion to sting as much as it did. When the invitation came, printed in gold with the old school crest at the top, I hesitated. 10 years felt like a lifetime ago, yet somehow my heart still remembered every laugh that didn't include me, every whisper that followed me down the hallway. I almost didn't go. But curiosity, that small and dangerous thing, convinced me otherwise. After all, I wasn't the same girl who'd left that town with a suitcase full of dreams and self-doubt. I had changed quietly, patiently, and painfully. Still, as I walked into that ballroom filled with sequined dresses and polished smiles, I felt it, that old ache of not belonging. The chandeliers shimmered above us, music hummed softly in the background, and laughter rolled like waves. Groups of old classmates gathered in tight circles, their memories woven together like threads I was never allowed to touch. And just like that, I was 17 again. "Wow, look who finally showed up," a voice said behind me, playful, but sharp enough to cut. It was Clara. The same Clara who once borrowed my notes, my sweater, and occasionally my confidence, only to mock me later for trying too hard. She looked exactly as I remembered, just slightly more polished, her hair gleaming under the lights. "Didn't think you'd come," she added, scanning my dress, simple navy, understated, before offering a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Before I could respond, another familiar voice joined in. "Oh, she had to come," said Jordan, our old class president. "These things are for everyone, even the quiet ones." The group laughed. Not cruelly, not loudly, but enough. I smiled back, though my throat felt tight. "Good to see you too," I said quietly. It was strange how memories could crawl back like ghosts. Every word, every look, every whisper seemed to echo years of feeling small. But I wasn't small anymore. I had learned to carry silence like armor, to let people's opinions pass through me without leaving bruises. Still, that night tested every lesson I thought I'd learned. They didn't ask what I did for a living. They didn't care where I'd been. They simply assumed, and in their eyes, I was still the girl who didn't fit in, who didn't shine enough to matter. When I excused myself and found a seat at the corner of the room, I wondered if I'd made a mistake by coming. The music grew louder, the laughter sharper. I sipped my water and tried not to look like someone waiting for a moment that would never come. Then, something unexpected happened. The host, a former teacher, walked onto the stage and tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said warmly, "we have a little surprise tonight. One of our own has returned, and I think you'll want to hear what she's been up to." My heart thudded. I didn't expect him to call my name. The room fell into silence. Clara's laughter stopped mid-sentence. Jordan turned his head. All those faces, curious, amused, doubtful, turned toward me. "Please welcome," the host continued, "award-winning author and keynote speaker, Anna Wells." It took me a moment to stand. Even as I walked toward the stage, I could feel the disbelief ripple through the room. For years, they had written me off, and now the same people who once overlooked me were clapping. The lights were warm and blinding. I could barely see their faces from the stage, but I didn't need to. I could feel the shift, that quiet, stunned silence that follows realization. I took a breath, smiled softly, and began to speak. But I didn't talk about success or recognition. I talked about kindness, about the way small cruelties leave deep marks, and how silence can hurt as much as words. I talked about how sometimes the ones who sit alone are the ones carrying the heaviest dreams. And as I spoke, I saw something shift in Clara's expression, not envy, not guilt, but a flicker of understanding. By the time I finished, the applause wasn't loud, but it was sincere. And in that moment, I realized revenge doesn't always look like triumph. Sometimes it looks like grace. When I stepped down from the stage, the air felt different, lighter somehow, yet charged with everything unsaid. People who hadn't looked my way all evening were suddenly smiling, clapping me on the shoulder, saying things like, "I had no idea," and "You were always so talented, Anna." It was strange how quickly the room could shift. 10 years ago, I would have soaked it in that validation, that sudden wave of attention. But standing there, in that glittering hall filled with old ghosts and new praise, I realized something important. I didn't need it anymore. Clara approached first, a glass of wine in her hand, her usual confidence slightly dimmed. "You were incredible up there," she said, her tone softer than I'd ever heard it. "I didn't know you became a writer." I smiled, not out of pride, but out of peace. "It's been a long journey," I said, "but I'm grateful it led me here." She hesitated, eyes flicking to the floor. "You know," she murmured, "I used to tease you a lot back then. I thought it was just harmless fun." "It wasn't," I replied gently, "but I understand now. We were all just trying to fit into something." Her eyes glistened for a second before she nodded. "You turned out amazing, Anna." "Thank you," I said, meaning it. Because the truth was, forgiveness had taken more courage than success ever did. Across the room, Jordan raised his glass toward me. "Didn't expect the quiet one to conquer the world," he said with a smirk, though there was something genuine beneath it. I laughed softly. Neither did I. The night went on, but something in me had already settled. For years, I had imagined that moment, the reunion, the reckoning, the poetic justice where everyone who overlooked me finally saw me. But the reality wasn't as sweet as I once dreamed. It wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about realizing that their opinion no longer defined who I was. I stepped outside for air. The hotel garden was still, the faint scent of jasmine curling through the night. I leaned against the railing and looked up at the stars, small, steady lights in the dark sky. For a long time, that's what I had been too. Small, but persistent. A voice came from behind me. "You handled that beautifully." It was Mr. Thompson, my old English teacher, now older, grayer, but with the same kind eyes. He had been the only one back then who'd seen me for who I was, the one who'd scribbled, "You have a voice, never silence it," in the margins of my first essay. "I didn't expect to see you here," I said, smiling. "I wouldn't have missed it," he said warmly. "You know, I still have that short story you wrote in senior year, the one everyone said was too sad." I laughed softly. "It probably was, but I guess sadness taught me how to tell the truth." He nodded, eyes thoughtful. "And truth taught you how to heal others." We stood there in comfortable silence for a moment before he said, "You know what I liked most about your speech? You didn't try to sound like anyone else. You just told your truth." That sentence lingered. Because maybe that was the heart of it, all the lesson I'd spent years learning. I had spent half my life trying to fit into voices that weren't mine, waiting for applause that didn't matter, trying to be seen by people who never looked beyond the surface. And now, standing there beneath the night sky, I realized I didn't need them to. When I walked back inside, the crowd had thinned. Some people were dancing, others gathered in small circles of laughter and nostalgia. Clara waved goodbye before leaving. Jordan nodded once before returning to his group. It was all okay. There was no bitterness left, just a quiet understanding that life had unfolded exactly as it needed to. Before I left, I took one last look around the hall. The same walls that once held my insecurities now echoed with something entirely different closure. I had come full circle, not as the girl they remembered, but as the woman I had become. Outside, my car waited beneath the soft glow of the streetlight. I slipped inside, resting my hands on the steering wheel, and smiled. Not because I had proven them wrong, but because I had proven myself right, that quiet persistence, kindness, and resilience could outlast even the cruelest laughter. As I drove away, I thought of all the nights I'd cried alone, the years I'd spent chasing belonging. If only that younger version of me could see this moment, not the applause, not the success, but the calm that came after. Sometimes life doesn't give us revenge, it gives us reflection, and sometimes the best revenge is peace.